no problem. Yes. Thanks, Hassan. Yeah. Yes, Patel, Dolly ma'am, do you have any questions? Why you're saying we are not? Hello?
Oh, no, I'm good. Is the recording was not on?
Oh, sorry. Okay, for the recording. No problem. I thought, there's some confusion or there is some, error in my explaining. No problem. So we were very good, ma'am. Means you explained it really right. I think you got a really good idea of how to project plan or not. Anybody have any questions so far?
I have a question.
Please.
So the project duration will be the start and the end date, right? So the days
That's
between
right.
that,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So that
You can create another level task before the first one and say the project name. So enhancement of attendance management system will be my super task, and then it comprises total tasks which I have included in that.
Okay.
And which normally includes the warranty and support as well, which might go for, let's say, at least 3 months or so after the go live as well.
Okay.
So all those will encompass in my project.
Oh, this was my actual. Okay.
No, that's okay. Means before the second task you plan, right? Designing,
Yes.
you normally add one task, and you normally give a before the first. What's the first task? Could you please scroll up? Yeah, so this is the first, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Before that, you add a task here. Give the name of the project.
Okay.
And then the start date is actual project start date.
Okay. That was the name of the project, actually.
Yes, that's right.
So the
start date which you pick from 12D is basically going to be 11D. This date will be there. Okay.
Okay,
You can
so
do it.
This is the start date, right? So
right. So this should be there. Yeah, equal to. Yeah, perfect. And end date will be the end date of the last task.
Is it not showing D4?
You need to set up the. Okay, that's also okay. No problem.
Okay. So end date is the
last date of the
okay.
last date of the last task.
Okay.
So equal to, yeah, go down.
And I can format that.
Yeah.
Just have to change
the duration and all those things. That's right. That will be
Okay.
basically your, yeah. Wow, you got really, great hang of it, I believe.
I can change the format. I can custom also just once.
I think, yeah, something like that.
Why is it not in?
Yeah, no problem.
So the format is TDD, comma, this is date, right? D. Why? It should take. Okay. So that,
yes.
So that is there.
Perfect, no problem. Chalo, could we start on cost management? Could you please stop your share, ma'am? This is really great. I really appreciate your effort. I think you got a really great view or, great idea of what needs to be done. Now we are ready to go and, start working on Microsoft project or Jira. Okay, let's go through this cost management thing. Let's try to understand a couple of entities to actually arrive at a thought process of what is milestone, why we need to have milestone in the project planning. What does it actually makes when you say I shift from one phase to another? How do we tackle with the cost, right? Or how do you basically gauge a project status at a particular milestone? So all these scenarios we're going to learn through project cost management. Cost management is basically the grave concern for top management because they do business for earning profits. And how do they calculate profit for a project? From the cost management, right? And that's why project cost management is the most crucial topic for top management. All the PMO audits are typically concentrated on cost management, the cost, the profits, how I'm going to earn good profits on this given project, is going to do better than the rest, and so on and so forth. Or how could we make it better than the rest? how could we earn more profit, and so on and so forth. That's the basic intention of cost management, right? And we have 4 process group in our cost management. The wrong slide. Yeah. Yes, we have 4 process group in our cost management. We had a look at 3 last time. We're going to have a look at the 4th one as of today as well. Let's try to understand the total 4 groups. We have plan cost management. So we basically started planning cost management. How do we plan cost management? How do we estimate cost, determine budget, and then we control the cost? Okay, we had a look at plan cost management. We take care of all the business analyst documents which came to us as a project manager. We try to understand how the project charter, project objectives, the business need for a solution. Then we build, normally take a good review of schedule management plan and risk management plan. Schedule management plans tell me about scope, schedule, and the resource. These 3 things normally get you to derive cost. And then we have risk management plan, which normally takes me how much risk I'm going to take for this given project. Is this too much? Could it cripple the cost? Sometimes yes. So should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Then I'll go to management and tell them, boss, these are the risks which our risk management team have come up with. Could you please, give me a green, go ahead or a green for this project? And then the top management will, deliberate, debate on that, and then we'll decide jointly, should we do this project? Shouldn't we do this project? Otherwise, in every project review, we normally analyze the schedule management plan, which is actually a project plan in Microsoft Project or a Jira, where we normally study scope, schedule, resource, and the derived cost out of it. And then we also consider risk management plan to make sure we are not basically forcing any dangerous risks or any danger so that our cost or our profitability get crippled in a given execution. In such scenario, then we are good and we give a go ahead, or we give a blessings. The top management give a blessing to do this project. In case of enhancing attendance management system, if you're working as a project manager with Infosys, you normally have a project review or project audit review or project audit, the way it's labeled depending upon your organization you work in. You normally try to understand, or the overall management will try to understand how you are doing in terms of each and every execution. So they'll try to understand what's the scope involved, how much resources are we going to need, how much duration are we talking about for such resources, and what will be the total cost we're going to spend on this given execution. In this scenario, we will basically try to understand the profit margins of it. We'll try to understand if it's viable, if we are not basically seeing any dangerous risk coming our way, and then we'll say, okay, no, we are good, let's go ahead. I think we can make a good profit. We can start a new engagement, new partnership with new client and all those things. So all these even strategic measures are also considered here. And that's the way these audits are normally go ahead with the PMO as an overseeing body, or sometimes if you're a startup, everybody in the organization sits together to review such execution or try to understand if we are doing good or if we are going to get something good out of this execution. This execution in the sense, the project. Then we have, of course, enterprise environmental factor, organizational process assets to support us. We normally take help of the expert judgment here. Experts are the top management or the PMOs or the very senior persons who have done similar things earlier in my in history for this organizations. Then we have data analysis. We do analyze the data of scope, schedule, cost, and we try to understand how the current execution is going to be profitable or strategic in nature for us, and then we'll do it. Then we, of course, nowadays we have lots of online meetings. Previously they used to meet and greet together and try to understand if it's really a profitable opportunity, should we do it, shouldn't we do it, and those kind of scenario. The outputs are cost management plan, and here we include all the auditory proofs or even a reference link to audit report for the previous audits done by PMO, CEO, CTO, depending upon your organizational policies and procedures. In a company like Patni, Cognizant, Wipro, TCS, Infosys, we have a body called PMO, Project Management Office, who represent the top management for a given project. They normally do at least monthly audit for each and every execution, so that they'll be sure of either it's a strategic project so that we can invest more than the spending, or you have a profitable project at hand here, and we are good in terms of we are not eating up our profit, we are not eating up our management reserve, and so on and so forth. So this is what the basic analysis we do in a typical project cost management audit. Project cost management plan is built on these scenarios. Any questions so far for me?
No.
Okay, let's take a step further. Now, estimate cost. In basically cost planning, the estimation cost is one of the most important factor, where how do we estimate, and you should form a uniform methodology. Okay, there are a couple of tools and techniques available as far as estimating cost goes, but we normally stick to one of them. We don't shuffle around, because when you start with one, there are certain consideration, there are certain assumptions which we have come to take it as our normal understanding of for a given engagement, and we'll follow with that. We don't keep those baselines, those estimation points the way do it, because that gives you a reference point, like last time this time this. How is the progression happening? Is it good? Is it in line with the normal project progression? Then yes. So that's why if you change the estimation methodology, these points may differ, so your curve can be really damaging. We'll understand what you mean. What's the curve we are talking about? It's normally called as an S curve. You might have heard of it. Otherwise, we'll have a look at it. What is an S curve and how do we track it? Okay, let's try to understand from inputs and outputs perspective. We have cost management plan. That's the basic plan which we built in our previous process group. We'll try to understand how the costs are looking. Are they looking good? Okay, then let's go ahead. Let's try to attach a methodology to it. Methodology or disciplines means, should we go with Agile? Should we go with Waterfall? Should we go with Scrum? Should we go with Scaled Agile? And there are dime a dozen, project management methodologies to choose from, depending upon your, thought process of domain, the, schedule requirement, the resource requirement. We normally adopt to a project plan. Normally, 95% and more, we normally choose for Agile Scrum. So Agile Scrum will be normal, our, discussion points at this moment, and we'll try to understand. There are quite a few organizations who still use Waterfall, one of the most oldest project management methodology, and we're going to have a look at that as well. Then we try to build a scope baseline to understand how the scope is basically driving the schedule, resource, and the cost eventually. And those kind of scenario, we will keep a close eye on understanding about how the project is going to get progressed. If you're in a mid of thing, we'll try to understand the history versus future scenario, and we'll try to find out the estimation cost. Is it look real practical? Because normally there are project managers which stick to theoretical cost estimation, and which can basically lead to a failure, because theoretical cost estimation is one thing, but you need to understand how you're progressing in those terminology. Sometimes these two might deviate. And that's why we need to keep close eye on how practically the spending is coming on an actual execution. So that's also one of the most crucial thing for all new manager, for any manager for that matter, who want to really manage a project. And project cost management is one of the most crucial, because the top management reviews it on almost daily basis. Let's try to understand the documents which we're going to analyze for estimating cost. Lessons learned register, the previous better executions, or any new practices which have decided to adopt. And this normally goes hand in hand with the quality management system or the project methodology, whatever you chose. Okay, then the project schedule. Schedule is basically wherever a project team gives a thought on how much time is going to take for a typical task. And that's how they progress. That's how their version of understanding how we're going to move ahead step by step in terms of executing the task, or understanding of how much time the task will take. But overall, the top management review this schedule in terms of understanding the practicability or verifying with their experience, is it in line with the practical executions we did earlier? And then they give you a go ahead. Then we have resource requirement. And as the development team presents their way of project plan or a project manager to the top management in a given project review audit, there we'll understand, are these resource requirement real? Whatever skill set project manager feels he or she requires, are they exist in a nature? Because normally all project managers need the senior most resource, and they should have all the skill in the world. They should be best in communication. They should be really, good personality. They should be really, excel in .NET, Java, Android, whatever project you are doing, whatever platform you are doing, Android, AI. They should understand what are the latest trends in the technology and blah, blah, blah things. This list goes on. Means if you really try to understand the best resources theoretically, you are looking for Brahmadev, you are looking for a god to help you out to execute a project, but that's not the practical scenario. So in a scenario where project body, including top management, sits together to understand, they review these documents in terms of what are the best practices we have decided to choose, what type of schedule I'm going to prepare for it, what type of resource requirements, what we have and what we can give to this project manager to complete this project. Are they practical? Are they feasible? Rather than, sorry, practical is not the right word. Are they feasible? Could we do it? Could this project can bear those costs in case of extremely senior resources, in case of extremely critical resources? That's how organization sees those base resources that organizations have, and so on and so forth. And for that matter, they also try to understand what type of risk have project manager analyzed earlier, and what type of risk the other senior risk manager from PMO, CEO, CTO can verify, if they can foresee those risks hammering your projects or hammering your cost in any way. So all these things makes top management understand whatever we took in terms of project management, or whatever we are doing in terms of if we are in executions mode, are we going okay? Are we going away from our basic project objectives or not? And are we good on cost and profitability? So those kind of scenario are being reviewed in the estimate cost project cost management reviews by top management. And that's how we come to validate all these executions almost at least a month, if not more. And if the project manager or any auditor within the organization thinks this project is normally headed for doom because of such and such events, he reports to a PMO, normally in matured organization. Otherwise, he reports to the CEO, CTO of the world, and they basically sit up for an audit. And these are all things we review in those project review audit or a project cost audit. So estimation of a cost is a really evolutionary game. It's not again a ribbon cutting ceremony. You estimate, project manager sits with the resources, they try to estimate, and that's the first estimate we are talking about. There will be re-estimating, reassessment, and there will be lots of explaining for why we say 4 hours or 5 hours, and those kind of discussions, because everybody in the organizations want to make sure whatever execution we take, there shouldn't be any failure, there shouldn't be any loss of profit. And that's how we work together hand in hand with the top management to understand whatever we are executing, they are in line with the organizational processes and policies and the quality management plan. Quality management plan is a document, it's a set of policies and procedures which basically we adopt. And that's what we call quality management systems. We'll understand in project quality management knowledge area how these QMS are formed. If you are a startup project manager, how you can build a quality management for yourself. And then we'll have a look at it, why we need a quality management. Even in a normal life, you should have certain benchmark, what we normally call wasool, like in Hindi movies and all, right? So we should have a normal benchmark. How angry I can get, at my work, how angry I can get with my family. We normally don't do it, but we should do it. How fast I need to respond to my better half comments, to my spouse comment. Sometimes even everybody is in a bad mood, right? So we need to control ourselves. We need to basically take best out of our life. And how do we do it? Build some quality to it. Yes, emotional intelligence. Saritaji, great word. So Saritaji know these things. So for those levels of emotional intelligence control is what we need even in our day-to-day life. And how do we do it? We build some quality management plan for our life. And we don't go haywire from those quality management plan. We don't deviate from those plans. And that's how we build quality in our life. That's how we build happiness, because our end result should be not getting rich. Our end result should be being happy, enjoying our life. And enjoyment of life shouldn't be at cost of misery to others. That's also another philosophy, right? And that's what I think every religion is basically founded on such thought process. But we normally, miss these things and try to, go ahead with, well, let's not deviate from our, thought process. But I believe you got the hint why we need these things. And even on a daily life, we do estimate our cost. When you get up, what are the, cost dissipation, what things I need to purchase today, and so on and so forth. So we start planning based on cost. It's not just money game, but it's basically the happiness game, what we should be more concerned about. Rather than how much dollar I have in my pocket, how happy I am, it should be the most, or rather final objective what we should look for. But that's my way of, thought process. You can differ your thought as well. And that's what the emotional intelligence is all about. If you're happy, look at the quality of your work you do. Believe me, review yourself. And then you can basically start deducing your thought process. The tools and techniques we use in estimation cost, expert judgment, these are talking about top management and the reviewers. We do use estimation like analog, parametric, bottom up, 3-point. And these 4 estimations, which are mentioned in the PM book, are normally standard as in used by, older project managers. But now we use certain more real practical estimations. And those are like line of codes, how much line of codes a developer write on a industry level for .NET, for Java, how much, pen module machine or robot can make in a day, how much, cars we can get assembled in a day, and so on and so forth. So now we have a look at more practical estimations as of today, because we have those historical figures to support us in those scenarios. And we have really good tools like Excel and all to build what you can say, not expression, the future trend analysis kind of scenario. From there, we can estimate it in more practical sense, more ground level scenario than these theoretical estimations, what we've seen through PMI. Are these wrong? No. If you going to start working as a project manager, you might need to go ahead with one of these 4 estimation. But depending upon your organizational policies and procedures, we choose the estimation techniques and we do estimate for those schedules. And those artifacts we normally put before the PMO whenever they do estimate cost or project cost audits. We normally have a data analysis, and these analysis normally relates to the auditory fact you preserved in your cloud knowledge space, where you can support why we chosen these alternative and not that alternative. Then we might have some reserve analysis. In some scenario, there could be some risk which can hamper your reserve. Means they can cost you much more than actual task cost allocated to it, and so on and so forth. Risk like remote working, right? As we work remotely, the efficiency goes down, and that's what we've seen in the history also. Means the overall efficiency can go down from 80% to 45%, and this is actual practical deviation we can see throughout the various region in the world. In North America, I think the standard deviation was around 66 to 70% of reduction of that's the efficiency what the development of Java, Android, and .NET have been reduced to when you start working remotely, and so on and so forth. So we have to understand these reserve analysis. So the project cost gone up considerably in terms of we need to do some rework, we need to do some more time in development, and so on and so forth. Or you try to work more from your home. That can be another way to look at it. But these things do happen, and this is how the industry learns itself or adapt itself to a given scenario. like the COVID and all those things. And then we have discussed cost of quality. Let me show you a video of cost of quality, and we'll understand from another way of looking at what is cost of quality and how do we actually understand it. It's a 6-minute or 6.5-minute video, and we'll learn about what you mean by cost of quality. This is really important discussions because from cost of quality, we try to estimate how much I'm spending on a quality. This should be like, the earrings are much heavier than your ear. So your ears start, getting damaged. So for that matters, we should understand how much I have in my kitty to spend on quality, because every quality maintenance requires some tolerance, requires some efforts, which translates to a cost in a given project. So how do we do it? Let's try to understand for that cost of quality, and we'll debate it out. What do you feel in terms of, is it a right thought process, or should we, discuss some more on the cost of quality? This is the favorite question of a very senior project manager normally. How do you perceive as a PM? What do you think of cost of quality? So you need to explain in your own word what is cost of quality, and you can relate to a real life example also. As we discussed last time, right? If you want to take a new car, you can take anything from Dodge Neon to Ferrari. Where should I stop myself? I should consider my pocket first. Then I should consider the scope. What I need this car for. Do I need this car to, build my brand value or show it to my neighbors like I have money and all those things? Then I might lean towards Ferrari. If I need a car to drop my, 2 kids, 3 kids, or 4 kids, or whatnot, to schools, or to go to and fro in some from point A to point B, I might consider a smaller car. If I have a number of travelers more, I might go for something like car van, or something like a larger car where I can accommodate around 8 people, and so on and so forth. So that's how I try to deduce to a cost of quality or a fitment to the result. That's what we normally say. Let's try to understand from this gentleman, and we'll understand what is the cost of quality in detail.
About the cost of quality. Now, if you're into reading articles rather than watching video, first link in the description will take you to a related article on this topic. And the second link in the description is going to take you to the entire playlist of quality management knowledge area, all the videos that we have done so far. So first,
yes, we are basically doing this proactively earlier, because the way I've seen the maturity of you building this task list and all, we should understand this right now, and then we might revisit this video. So don't worry on that part. Just try to understand what we are understanding. This is a part of, as he said, project quality management knowledge area.
Second link, very important. With that being said, let's get started. Quality comes at a cost, and there's no denying that fact. But what exactly is this cost of quality? So it includes all the costs incurred over the life of the product. And this is important. Incurred over the life of the product, not just the project. So you may finish that project. The outcome of the project could be a product. The entire lifetime of that product, whatever cost that you incur in terms of quality, is known as the cost of quality. Now, cost of quality is equals to cost of conformance plus cost of non-conformance. So there you have the equation. Cost of conformance plus cost of non-conformance. Let's look and understand what do these two costs mean. So cost of conformance is basically the cost of preventing failure. Remember the word preventing. So when you're preventing failure, it means that you are spending money on cost of conformance during the course of the project. You have not finished the project. During the course of the project itself, you are spending money to make sure that you prevent failure. That is precisely cost of conformance. Now, there are two types of conformance costs. Number one is prevention costs. So you do training, train the employees. You do documentation so that everything is documented. The end users as well as the engineers, everyone, the project team, everybody knows what is being done. The equipment, if any specific equipment are required for completing your project, they come under prevention costs. Time to do it right. If you need more time to deliver the project right, do it, and that may come under prevention costs. Now, the other costs are appraisal costs. So that's where testing comes into the picture. That's where destructive testing loss come into the picture. That's where inspections come into the picture. Now, like I mentioned in our previous video on quality, a lot of people think quality is equals to testing, and here you can see how that is just one part of testing. Now, secondly, what is destructive testing? I think if you have ever seen a car being tested, crash tested, they crash the car to test the airbags, to test how safe the seat belts are, testing like that is known as destructive testing. So that is also part of appraisal costs. And then inspections, of course, you're already aware of how you inspect the end product of a project. So all these costs are known as conformance costs. So of course there is a cost of non-conformance as well, and there will be types of non-conformance costs. So let's look into that. But before we move there, so the cost of non-conformance. Cost of non-conformance is the cost incurred because of failures. Cost of conformance was the cost that you spend to prevent failure. Now, when the failures occur, the cost that you incur, that is the cost of non-conformance.
So I believe you got an idea, right? What type of cost we are talking about and how does cost of quality constitutes. And that's what we normally review in this estimation cost as well. So these costs have to be considered. So this is what we talk about, the QA and QC, quality assurance and quality control type of cost we will consider, and we'll also add it to the estimation cost, because those type of efforts also needs to be spent on a given execution, be it a product, project or solution, whatever you are developing. Okay, then we have project information system. This is a typical information system which reports to the top management. So we pull out certain matrices, something like schedule variance, effort variance, cost variance, and so on and so forth. We'll learn these things step by step, but I believe you can understand at least these 3-4 variants what we talk about right now. Variance in the sense whatever you have planned and whatever actually happened, and a difference between that. So this is the variance we normally talk about. These variance normally guides the top management on deviation from the theoretical thought process to the practical thought process, or a deviation of a practical approach or actual ground scenario executions than the planned thing. And that's what we normally explain to the top management in terms of variance, why not, and all those things. Then we have decision-making process. In certain scenario, we might sit together and scrap a particular feature of a product being too costly or being almost impossible to make, and so on and so forth. And such scenario, we normally take voting, but in today's world, we normally address such scenario in our daily Scrum meet. I believe everybody understand when I talk about daily Scrum meet, right? Is that a good assumption?
Yes.
When I say daily Scrum meet, do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, great. And this is how, if anybody don't, please raise their voice and I'll explain it to them. Okay, because slowly, steadily, I'm going to use the Agile methodology terminology where we have to understand, or we need to portray ourselves as an experienced project manager. This way, we're going to speak the world of speak the language of project managers, and we can portray ourselves as a senior project manager and basically go for the top dollar job. And that's the intention, that's the objective. Please don't feel like if you can't use these words, there's a big damage. No, but still, if you can use these words, they can really give you a top dollar in actual, practical scenario whenever you clear your interview. So try using these. Go ahead, please.
Just, sorry, I missed the last class. So if you could explain, I don't want to bother. Just what 1 minute or 2 minutes, just if you could describe that, that would be helpful for me.
Okay, you miss, sir. Means what the last point you remember?
I know this Scrum, everyday Scrum.
Yeah,
just
sure.
a few bulletins, Just for a minute.
Definitely. No problem. See, when we talk about decision making or alternative analysis, right? Here, what we do, previously we used to plan extra meeting for them. These are over and above of a project review meeting. Even we do so in waterfall and other methodologies. But nowadays, since maximum IT companies or maximum company organizations who have adapted to the project management thought process, they normally go ahead with the project Agile Scrum type of approach. Okay, Agile tutor might tell you like this is a mindset, not a framework and all. Say yes to that. But normally it's a framework what we use in terms of using particular template, using particular discipline, even to a meeting or something like that sort. So in such scenario, we use a daily project review meeting within the team and the client major stakeholder. And these meetings are normally what we call stand-up meeting to be concluded in 15 minutes. That's a discipline Agile Scrum project management methodology brings to you. So these meetings, we review all the challenges, we review all those, all those challenging tasks and all the understanding of all such decision to be made or all such crucial understanding to be made for a given, alternative path or alternative execution for a given activity or alternative control, construction techniques, development techniques we have, and we take a decision in the daily Scrum meet. This is what we call a daily Scrum meet, which is normally should be over by within 15 minutes. That's a normal discipline. And we normally refer this meet as daily Scrum meet in most of the organizations. There could be called, there are organizations who might label the meeting as a review meeting or, backlog review meeting and some other labels as well. We'll see to that. But normally when I say daily Scrum meet, I'm referring to such meet where in the morning you stand together for 15 minutes and try to review such decisions to be taken as an alternative or as an options we have, and where we normally what we choose and why we choose and those kind of scenario. Does that make sense, sir? Have you understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. No problem. So this is how we keep improving our vocabulary in terms of trying to behave as a senior project manager and trying to get the best job available in the market, which is really, of course, the best paying job available in the market. And that's why we should start using such vocabulary to make sure we can present ourselves, and we'll practice on that. Don't worry on that part. I'm just started basically going into that overall, setting foot up in the field and those kind of scenario, right? So the outputs are cost estimate. So we normally apply the estimates to a given activity list, task list, in terms of if Ravindra is going to do that, how much days, how much hours he or she is going to take, and so on and so forth. So here I'm trying to finalize my project plan, Microsoft project plan, Jira project plan, or any other project plan for that matters. Here we build it and then we get it reviewed from the top management as an cost review, as an overall whatever review procedures we have within our organizations. We also detail out the basis of estimate. We mention there which type of methodology have we chosen to estimate, and we normally go ahead with that methodology throughout that product, project, or solution life cycle. The documents update are assumption logs. What type of assumption have been added whenever I say I'll get the raw material before the task starts, and why not? We try to use the best practices which we have already learned within the organizations or with the help of the industry experts as well. And then we do update our risk register of whatever risk we foresee within this estimation cost process group. Any question for me at this moment? Have we understood how we estimate cost? How we apply this cost to a scope, schedule, resources, project management plan, and why we do it? I believe you have a good idea. Is that a right statement?
Yes.
Sure. If you have any questions, you can ask me on WhatsApp anytime, or we can discuss in our next session as well. Please don't think this is the last day of the world. Okay. Then we move to a next process group called determine budget. Here we are trying to understand, and we try to recheck again and again on, am I doing good in terms of my profitability to the organization? And this is the concern of top management, is normally addressed on these budgetary figures. I believe everybody have heard the word budget before. Every governments plan their budget, at the year start, they review the budget at the year end, and they rebudget it, and so on and so forth. So here we understand how much I have in my pocket, how much I'm going to spend, and how much I'm going to match the, reserve, build the reserve, how am I going to build something for everybody at a society. That's what government thinks. In this project, we are more concerned about the project. So how much the schedule, scope, resources gives me a cost, and the result of it is basically we trying to do a budget for a project. This project can be a solution, product, or a support services, where we try to understand at the cost of so much, we're going to build so many things, and we're going to earn so much as a profit. This is what the overall budgeting we are referring to. The inputs are cost management plan, of course, because we have come down to a cost figure. The resource management plan, which changes according to the cost. So if you have to, if you don't have too much money in your pocket, you can go with a cheaper car, and so on and so forth. So this is like kind of balancing the whole scenario. Then we have scope baseline. Scope baseline basically dictates how much you need to spend. What's the need? What's the want? I believe you can understand the difference between the want, the need, and the overall greed, and those kind of scenarios. So here, this scope baseline basically puts the pointer on the right point of understanding what is the need, and is it really sufficing the need, or we just dreaming about, and those kind of scenarios. So that's why scope baselines guides you to actual need of the hour. The documents are basis of estimate, cost estimate, and a project schedule. Cost basis of estimate is basically the methodology you chosen to estimate your task, activities, work items. The cost estimate is basically whatever the derived figure we have mentioned, or whatever the figures which are derived from the project plan. That's the mature tools capability overall to budget for, to build a budget guidelines for the cost project. We normally call them cost baselines. We normally call them the final cost figures for a given activity, work item, or executions. And then we have project schedule. So we normally decide at this point of view, as the point of project executions. Do we need to crash the project? Do we need to fast track a project, or are we going at an okay speed? And this basically normally gives you an idea like how soon or how delayed I am in my given project. Whatever I have been estimated earlier, is it in line with the practical expectation of a client? Because client is going to pay from his pocket, right? So their expectation does matter at the top of the ball game. So here we're trying to understand, are we fulfilling those the expectation? Then what are the timelines I'm looking for? So I'll try to match those timelines. And of course, am I taking an undue risk or not? Then I'll have a risk register to review all those risks which I have taken, their cost, impact estimates, and all those things as well. Because every occurred risk can impact your cost, can damage your cost, or can really cripple the project on quite a few number of times. So that's why risk register review gives you an exact additional cost which we need to spend on certain unforeseen circumstances, and so on and so forth. The business documents normally referred are the business case, the business benefits management plan. Business case is basically talks about the basic project objective, and the benefit management plan talks about the profitability which I'm expected to get out of this execution. It can be project, it can be a product building, it can be a solution building, or it can be a support services. What all I'm doing, I need to understand how much benefits I can leverage from the current executions. And for that, we have these project cost reviews, which normally gives you a go ahead or a red signal or a yellow signal in terms of how you're performing on your project. This does matter to a project manager because his or her execution thought process, his or her own KRAs are basically attached to the successful execution of a project, product, or those services development, right? So for that matters, benefit management plan is one of the most crucial, entity as far as overall performance of a project manager. And that does, get reviewed in project cost review or project audit reviews or project review meetings, whatever you want to call it, depending upon the organizations you're going to join. And of course, we have enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets to help us out in building better product, better project, or better solution in a given, cost line, timelines, and all those things. So in a given circumstances, I'll try to excel because of EEF and OPAs. Okay, let's try to understand tools and techniques. We do take help from top management, and this also includes the top management, financial reserves, or timeline reserve, or any resources I have within my organizations like COE and SME to help us out to build better cost lines. Better cost lines means better profitability. Then of course, I normally do cost aggregation for each and every task, work item, or activity I have planned in my project plan, and try to come out to a overall cost baseline or a profit baseline, to be precise. And I might do a reserve analysis. Now, as we discussed in our last session, the management reserve is about 15 to 20%. And this talks about the overall revenue, which you should have in your kitty as a profit. Now, we don't encroach on those things. And there are some step-by-step, planning we do, as we've seen in this figure, right? How do you do project budget? How do you do cost baseline, management reserve? How do you control accounts? And then how do you build this contingency reserve? So there are management reserve, there's a contingency reserve, and activity contingency reserve. And this is the activity cost estimate. If you deviate from this, you might consume activity contingency reserve, which is okay at a certain point of time. But it starts getting the project into a yellow band rather than a green band. Green band, you complete your activity within activity cost estimates. If you go overboard of work package cost estimates, then you are basically going into the red. So if you start using contingency reserve, you are in red. And whenever you start hitting the management reserve, you are almost at a level where you are trying to close the project before its execution. And that's how overall, how we manage or how we review the project for a given cost. Okay. Now these reserve analysis do help us as a project manager, and helps the top management to understand how the project performance as far as the cost timelines or as far as the profit timelines going on. Then we have historical information review. Historical information review basically guide us or guide overall the organizations for certain similar type of project if you have done in the past, and try to match it up with if you are doing it more efficiently or less efficiently, and those kind of scenario where we try to understand if you are doing okay, then let's go ahead. If you're in a danger zone, then how can we pull out from the danger zone? What can be done as far as organizational helps to a given execution, to a given project solution or supports, and those scenarios. So here, that's what the historical information review means. And funding limit reconciliation. These are basically a kind of review techniques all the financial consultant use whenever we are trying to have a project cost review. This basically guides us, the top management, on how reserve usage have been going on in a given project, right? And so on and so forth. So we try to basically reconcile our accounts, reconcile our estimate what we given for a given particular task, work item, and so on and so forth. And then of course the financing. In case of some delays from a client financing, we might look out for the extra additional financing from a bank or a financer or a various fundraisers, avenues have with the organizations, and so on and so forth. This also depends on the size, the length and breadth of the project as well. So all these tools and techniques basically guides you to have your project execution within the line of the cost estimate, whatever we have estimated. So now you can understand the importance of the cost estimate, importance of the hourly estimate for a given resource, and how does that percolate or adds up to the overall project cost management as a knowledge area, as an overall how good I am in managing these cost for a project on aggregate level. The outputs are cost baseline. These basically guides out if we are doing okay on a normal, comparison level with other executions or not. Then what things we have at our hand to basically get it better, to pull the project, green rather than yellow or red. Red is the dangerous thing, but yes, yellow, that's okay. Means you need some help, and the help is given to you. That's a normal, thought process, and that's why we have PMOs of the world, CEOs, CTO of the world to help you out to get your project into green and to execute the complete, project, be it a project, product, or services development, be it in a green throughout the life cycle. How could we do it? And that's why we have these project cost reviews almost on a monthly basis, and that's a standard across the industries. But still, there are some organizations who might have these review in 15 days or weekly also. There are some, spare far and few incidents, but yes, there are some, project cost review on a weekly basis as well. But the daily Scrum meet, we normally review the scope, task, schedule, and a resource, those type of alignments, which actually reduce to the cost on an aggregate level, on a broader level. And that's how we do, or we keep, our plan for improvement, or we keep revisiting our project plan on daily basis to make sure we are not overboarding in terms of cost, in terms of profits, and in terms of even risk as well. And we also deduce in case of if we need any extra funding requirement. Because of daily Scrum, we might get the clients, early warnings in, disbursement of payments and those kind of scenario. So we might, request for extra funding if we require anything to the PMO or the top management of the boards. The documents updates are cost estimates, project schedule, and risk register, and any and all changes or modifications we have made in our project plan, even in a daily Scrum meet or even after a project cost review meeting, and so on and so forth. Anybody have any challenge in understanding these terminologies? Anybody have any question for me at this moment?
No, thank you.
No, I'm good.
Great, no problem. We had seen this, picture last time. This basically depicts a typical, how do we manage your cost on a given day or for a given execution. We have a project budget. That's a kind of the figure which we have at our disposal, or not at our disposal, at our organizational disposal for a given execution. This basically the customer is going to pay for this execution. Then we have a cost baseline in terms of how much this project or this particular executions can consume. The management reserve is basically the bare minimum profit the organization expect on a given cost estimate for a given execution. And then we have control accounts. So control accounts are basically the exact number of figure which project manager have at its disposal. And then we build a cushioning to it called contingency reserves. So the project managers gets the total number of dollars called control accounts to his kitty, the project kitty. And then we have certain reserve, what we call as a contingency reserve for each and every execution. We normally have to work out within the work package cost estimate, and we build an activity contingency reserve as well. And then we have actual activity cost estimate at each and every activity work item level, which I should be using in terms of these are the actually cost aggregated to a group task level. And that's how I percolate the total project budget to an activity or work item to understand how much I'm spending for a given work. And how do I deduce to this cost? I have scope, I have schedule, and I have estimated number of hours. And these aggregated costs are normally clamped to a resource with the number of hours I'm going to use on this project. Even if you use any COE, SME, the business experts we have within our organizations, their cost gets added to these activities because of you leverage their thought process, you leverage their number of hours, number of work hours, within your project. And that's how we build this activity cost as a total activity cost. And then we have an activity contingency reserve as well. And this is how the overall project cost management gets planned for a given execution to a given task to a given work item. Anybody have any confusion on this?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Most welcome. Then that's how we normally plan our cost. Let's try to understand cost baseline. Okay, and there's something called S-curve. S-curves guide you to have how the costs are being applied throughout the progress of a project. Right? Let's try to understand. The cost baseline is the approved version of time phase project budget. Now, what is the time phase project budget? If your project is of 9 months, then you can use so much percentage in your first month, so much percentage in your second month, third month, and so on and so forth. That's how we build, and that's how that S-curve is formed. We'll have a look at it in a minute. Okay, excluding any management reserve. So we are talking about total aggregated cost of work items. The last box on this figure. This figure is mentioned in your PM book as a figure 7.8 project budget components. Okay, so please refer to this figure and try to go through actual project budget components in your PM book and you'll understand. Now let's try to understand the cost baseline in there. The cost baseline is basically approved version of time phase project, excluding any management reserve, which can only be changed through a formal change control process. Now, what is formal change control process? You put a request to the top management or a financial consultant, they took it to the top management. You do a cost review of your project execution, and then when will decide if you are allowed to use a reserve or not. If they decide not to allow the reserve, means the project is in a red, and then it can be get closed proactively by the organization's top management. If you are allowed to use the reserve, it means that you are utilizing the project resource at their maximum capacity, and still the cost estimate have not been correct to a practical level. So you might sit down again and revisit the estimate. Estimate in terms of schedule, estimate in terms of the timeline for a resource and those things. And you arrive at a figure where you normally play within the budget. Now the cost baseline is used to as a basis of comparison to the actual results. This is what I'm talking about. So what we have estimated earlier and where we stand in practical. And the difference, the cost variance, even the schedule variance. This basically gives you to a good understanding of how the project is being executed on a given day or on a given progression level. The cost baseline is developed as a summation of approved budget for a different schedule activities. Now here the approved budgets, they are talking about the control accounts. Control accounts are within the project manager's capacity. You can you as a project manager can use the activity or work item contingencies, but whenever you are hitting the control accounts, it means that the project is already in a yellow. Now, whenever you go and ask about the other reserve, you are in danger, you are in a red. So the organization is going to bleed on its profit. So we should stop this execution then, because business are there to build profit. If you're not building profit, there's no need of business. You should close the business down, right? And so for such, understanding, we have these cost reviews almost in a month, or if called proactively by any financial consultant. The summation of control accounts make up to the cost baseline. I believe you understood now this statement. What is the summation of control accounts and how it makes up to the cost baseline? Cost baseline is a number on a group task level where you know how much kitty you're going to spend per cost basis. Since the cost estimate that make up to the cost baseline are directly tied to the schedule activity, this enables a time phase review of a cost baseline. Means you have a scope, time, and a resource to basically as a 3 variable point to get to a cost baseline, right? So here, how we plan this thing out, it depends on this S curve. Let's try to understand what is an S curve. I know this doesn't look like a S to you, but let's try to understand the cost baseline. This is the S curve we are talking about. Now, these are the funding requirements, where I get a fund and how, we progress on a step-by-step basis. So they try to basically give you difference between actuals and this thing as well. So they have given a complete picture of a project execution. Now here, let's try to understand some terminology. We are plotting time on an x-axis, the cumulative values or cumulative cost on y-axis, the cost baseline. As we started earlier with few resources, we keep adding resources, the cost gets higher here and here. So here basically is my major execution of a project. This is what I basically, what you can say, development activity or production activity goes after this curve till this curve. And the expenditure are slowly picking up because I paid on a delayed basis, right? I pay monthly salary, and at an organization level, I plan my start my expenditure a bit later, right? I do have some credit, allowance while payment and all those things. So that's why expenditure comes a bit lower than the cost baselines. And then we have expenditure go high on the basic, cost baseline also at the end of the project. And these are the extra rework and all those type of activity which we are talking about, right? Come on. And this is how the overall expenditure versus funding difference of the curves we are talking about. So have you got an idea of S curve? Again, I'll repeat. Project managers are not supposed to be financial experts. These are all financial terminology, but you should know, or you should understand what is an S curve. And this is what we talk about. This is what we should understand. If you want to be a financial consultant, you can understand these things in depth. And then you can explain what is, how the budget is being consumed, what type of, different steps we have in consumption of budgets and all those things. But normally on an industry level, project manager take help from project consultant to understand how this S curve is getting formed. Okay, let's not put too much time on these things. But still, if you want any details, you can ask me now in terms of S curve. I think I have a, overall, I have seen a video online. Let me start it for you. Give me a minute. Okay. This is a good video in terms of understanding how we are going to do in terms of the S curve. Let me share that thing. I'm directly playing it from the YouTube. So let's try to understand how the funding limit reconciliation and S curve basically understood by financial expert, or need to be understood by overall day-to-day project manager's life. Okay, let's try to understand from this.
Funding limit reconciliation, and we will also see how the expense, when they get aggregated in a cumulative fashion, they start taking a shape of something called S curve. So we get more details about creating the budget or determining the budget, and how do we reconcile the funding limits with it. So I'm taking a simple case. Assuming that we are running a 10 days long duration estimated project, which has 2 days of analysis, 6 days of development, and 2 days of deployment. So like I'm starting it on day 1, finishing the analysis on day 2, one person is working on it. Then I'm starting development on day 3, and I'm finishing it on day 8. 3 people are working on it. And I'm starting the deployment on day 9, and I'm finishing on day 10, and one person is working on it. It's a 10 days work. Initially 2 days, one person working. The next 6 days, 3 people work. So next, which makes the total 8 days, and the remaining 2 days, only one person working. So this is how it is. Now, when we look, for the simplicity's sake, I am putting the value of $100 per person as an expense rate per day. So person working on a day 1 and person doing a development, everybody has the same rate. So we are keeping the complexity simple. So if this information I put into a tabular format, I can say that I have a day from 1 to 10, and I'm saying that analysis, day one person is working and I'm spending 100 rupees on it because rate for one person is 100. On day 2 also I'm doing analysis, one person working on it and I'm putting 100 rupees to it. On day 3 I'm doing development, I'm putting 300 rupees to it because there are 3 development, this work is over. Again day 4 development 300, and till day 8 we are spending 300, and again when deploy we are spending 100 and 100. So this is like an estimation per day for this particular project. Now if I put a cumulative number to it, which is simple, just keep finding out till day 2 how much money I have spent. So day 1 plus day 2 makes 200. Cumulatively, by day 3 I have spent 500 rupees because 200 plus 300 makes 500. By day 4, 500 plus 300 makes 800. Day 5, 500 plus 300 makes 1100. So this particular column is primarily showing the cumulative money.
And these are cumulative cost at a group task level. These are all group tasks he have mentioned, right? Any confusion so far? If you are giving an if you're giving an interview on a financial consultant level, or if you're giving an interview for a financial project manager, then these are the terminology which we need to study. If you're doing for a project manager, they normally go to a level. Do you understand S curve? Could you please explain why we call it S and all those kind of questions? But this is a kind of in-depth study of a actual understanding of cost and S curve, or the funding limit reconciliation. That's how they labeled it out.
So by given point of time, how much money I would have spent, because we are working on the budgeting part of it. Now, if I put this thing on a graph, that where at a one axis I have a days like 1 to 10, and on another axis I have this cumulative estimate. This cumulative estimate which is coming in this particular column. So at the end of a day 1, I am done with 100 rupees. So say $100. So I put 100 here, $1. By end of a day 2, I am done with 200. So I put a 200 here. So this is like by end of 2 days. By end of 3, I am done with 500. So I will come somewhere there. So this goes like this. By end of a day 4, I am done with 800. Something like this. So by end of day 5, I am done with 1100. So day 5, somewhere here, 1100. You can see that some level like this line keeps coming in, 1100. By the end of a day 8, I am done with 2000. So if I put up a day 8, I am at 2000. Something like this. This is like a straight line. And then for remaining I becomes like this, because day 9 is 2100 and day 10 is 2200. So slope is reducing. Now this kind of curve may emerge in most of the projects, and sometimes it becomes more S. It's like becoming something like this, S. Now what is the significance of it? The idea here is initially we might be involving less number of people, and that is why in the initial duration of a project we may spend less money. As we get into execution, we are expected to spend lots of money, because more and more 3 people start working on it, and there are $300 they are spending every day. So our curve goes steep in between. But as we reach towards the end, again it is expected to have less number of people working on it, because it's just a deployment, the main work is already done, and curve goes down. And that's the kind of a mark we see in our S curve. So this is how our cost estimations are going against the time. So you will see this graph again and again, and we will use it for monitoring and controlling purpose as well. Now the topic comes, how do we reconcile the funding limits? So as a project team, I am spending money I am expected to spend money like this. I may have some variance from this line, but I am spending money every day. Does it make sense that every day I go to the sponsor and says, give me 100, give me 200, give me 500 because I need to spend it today? So your expenses are every day. but you may not request a fund from external parties or fund from sponsors on a daily basis. You may take some money and then you run your project for a while, then you take another money and you run the project for a while. I can give an example of the way I used to stay in hostel. So when I was staying for my studies in a hostel, I have to spend my money on a daily basis. But I can't keep asking my parents to transfer money on a daily basis. So there was a clear idea that in the beginning of the month, I get X amount of money. And that X amount of money is expected to last for a month. And before my month gets over, I get another X amount of money. So that is the same thing we are doing in a funding limit reconciliation for project basis. So we take the money, we run our project for a while, and we identify the next milestone. By that time, we get another money and we run our life again. Now, how does it look in this particular graph? You may say that, okay, I am in the beginning, and there is no rule for it. It is all about your understanding the flexibility of acquiring fund. Many times when I worked as an external project a person, as a contracted project manager and project team, these were our payment terms with the customers. So this funding limit reconciliation were more like a payment term. We get some money on a sign off. We run with that money for a while, and then we request another money on the milestone. We get that money and then we run our money, our project for a while. So it could be linked with your payment milestone when you are working with in an external project context. So just for example's sake, I say that in the beginning itself, give me the money here on the day one, I need 800. Okay, so it means on the day one, I am asking, give me 800. So I am taking this money till 800. Now this 800 is good enough till day 4. So I will say that I have this 800 till here. So give me the 800 on a day 1, and I won't ask more money till day 4. But on day 4, I will ask another 2000. By this, give me 1200 more. So I will reach to a 2000. So if I do that, it will become like, okay, on day 4, I get 2000, which is sufficient for some more time. Something like this. So, and then maybe on a 2000, on the day here, you ask that give me the remaining 200, 2200, so that I can finish my project. So this is your funding limits. So your expense is happening on a daily basis, but the request of money inflow is happening on a periodic or milestone basis. So when you are determining budget, it is not only about figuring out how are you going to spend your money, or how are you estimating to spend your money overall for your project work. You also need to figure it out how the money is going to come to you, and how should you balance the incoming money and outgoing money so that project work can be done without any blockages related to getting out of money. And you have been doing it as a student when you study in the hostels or anywhere. This is such a simple concept. Sometimes it becomes confusing when you just see this particular graph. What is this funding? So yeah, this is all I wanted to talk about in funding limit reconciliation.
So we got a clear idea of how the S curves is basically, right, and there's a way of explaining in terms of funding requirement, management reserve, project budget, and you can build those reserve band across this graph if you want to have. Anybody have any question for me at this moment? I'm going to share this video with you, so don't worry on that part. Yeah, we can discuss in our next session as well if you want to discuss on S curve. Again, I'll repeat, S curve is not for a typical project manager. Only if you know the overall understanding what is S curve, that's more than enough. But if you're a financial consultant, if you're working with a bank, then all these budgetary figures, the funding reconciliation makes sense to you. Okay, so if you're planning to build your career as a financial project manager, then you might have to look deep into this. Otherwise, just stick to the definition of S curve, and that's more than it. Let's go to a monitoring and process control group called control cost. Now, how do we control cost, right? And this is an ongoing activity throughout the project. Let's try to understand from an input-output perspective. The project management plan, the cost management plan is the most important plan in terms of understanding the spending or understanding how the project managers have planned the spending for a project execution. Okay, and understanding those cost baselines or the S curve for a given amount of task, for a given amount of timelines, and try to reconciling in terms of how much budget you have and how much spending you are incurring in a step-by-step manner. And on top of that, I do have a performance measurement baseline where I normally try to understand on each and every resource basis, man, material, machine, how the resources performance are up to the mark or not. This is again checked against the estimated versus actual. So the variance in terms of estimated versus actual gives me the performance measurements. And that's how I build a performance measurement baseline across the group task to understand how am I doing in a particular, activity level, work item level, and so on and so forth. The documents, basically the lessons learned registers, how as an organizations I have done in a similar, task or similar projects earlier. Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? If I'm doing good, well, great. I can add a couple of best practices to the knowledge base. If I'm doing bad, I might need a help. And then the top management or the auditory bodies can trigger certain help to make sure the project is in line, is in green, or in the to be executed within the budgets, budgeted figures and all. The project funding requirements, if I'm going red, or if I'm basically, have estimated budget or a cost or a schedule for that matters, and if there are certain dangerous, changes, it might be something like unforeseen risk getting materialized. It might be something like client is adding quite a few change requests in terms of construction, in terms of, addition to the project value. Then we might start the project funding requirement initiations by the funding, project financial consultant or by the project managers to the top management and eventually to the client. And this is how the process is followed. So as a project manager, I don't raise these things in Scrum Meet saying, hey client, when you say you need to add these fourth wheel to your bicycle, I think, I might need to raise a red flag. No, what I'll say, yeah, I can really accept that. But I believe, there should be some, additional resources to be added to the project for these tasks. Then he'll understand indirectly, like, yes, it will basically getting reflected to the cost at the end of the day. And that's how we normally diplomatically convey the cost to the project owner in the Scrum Meet. And that's what we're going to learn in a role play whenever we do at the end of these, training capsule, to understand how do we convey these type of scenario to the top management or to the project owners, even in a daily Scrum Meet. And work performance data in terms of specifically human resources, how they are doing, how many products per day, how many items per day, how many line of codes per day, how many function points per day, and such and such reviews make sure the work performance data is being in the green zone rather than in a red or yellow zone, and those kind of scenarios. So these are again a kind of review or auditory matters. These work performance data for a typical software executions can come from the integrated development environment. This is like the Android Studio, the Java, cafes integrated development environment, or the .NET Studio gives you all these data of number of lines keyed in by a particular, resource on a daily basis, and then the rework attached to it, and so on and so forth. So all these work performance data normally comes from the environment which we work in on a daily basis. Even on a robotics level, how many, FameCare cream robotic execution line is creating per day, and so on and so forth. This is what we call a work performance data, which is to be analyzed against the estimations which we have created in earlier project life cycle. Or we normally try to match these things as in terms of the actuals versus estimated type of variances. Organizational process assets to help us out, like we can leverage the experts, we can leverage the COEs and SMEs of the world to help me out to create a better execution line, efficient execution lines day by day. The tools and techniques, of course, we discussed the expert judgment. we have a data analyst in terms of earned value analysis. Now we'll have a look at this earned value analysis in a minute, where we'll try to understand how do we create these earned value figures, or a number where whatever things we have done and the total cost acquired, total cost acquired for a given day on a given project plan milestone, and we'll calculate this value on the basis of earned value analysis. And this is what we'll do almost on a daily basis, where I stand in terms of earned value. We'll have a look at it in depth in a minute. The variance analysis, we talk about variance, like there are many variants, like scope variance. What I say scope, I need to develop, I need to fit that 6 biometric scanners to State Farm office, right? Now what are the variants? Well, there are two, even if I've given one extra biometrics, the 2 biometric systems were faulty, so I couldn't complete my task today. This is the variance from actual to the estimated. Now I need to have these 2 return, then procure some more. I might procure 5 instead of 3, because even if out of 5, if 1 is failure, then I can actually make the previous task complete. And these things do happen in a practical life. So this is not like unforeseen. This is like whatever we cope up for, and how we build our reserve, or how do we cope up to the actual practical timelines. And this is what the managers are for. So management is not a science, it's not a repetitive statistical science. This is basically an art what we talk about. Why? Because there are variances, and we cope to such variance. We get adjusted ourselves to these variances. We build the cost estimate again, if not daily, at least on a weekly basis, or at least we have a monthly cost project management review, where we try to revisit our cost estimate and the cost, practical cost, what we'll be consuming on a daily basis, or on a progression level. Then we have this trend analysis, how trends are looking at me in terms of cost variance, in terms of improvement in cost, or concurrent adding to the cost, and so on and so forth. Like the person have experienced, like $800, $1,200, $2,000, and so on. So how the trend is basically guiding me, how is the S curves, and how should I build my reserve in more, in case if there are too much additions, even in terms of scope or schedule or the cost. And that's how I keep revisiting my reserve figures, keep improving my reserve figure, and so on and so forth. This is how I do these data analysis on daily basis as a project manager, and which gets summarized to project level on daily basis, but is normally audited by at least once in a month by the top management. To complete performance index, we normally summarize all these aggregated value in terms of earned value analysis, variance analysis, and trade analysis, and basically gives rise to a correct figure of reserve. How much should I have built a reserve for this project? And I might cope up to that with the help of top management or the financial experts. And of course, these all figures get reflected in my project management system on almost daily basis. That's how top management keeps track of each and every project execution, and try to understand if we are doing good, are we in a green, or are we going in a yellow or a red, and those kind of scenario. The outputs, work performance information. If there any sluggishness of a particular resource, particular robotic line, we get reported and get escalated at this time, so that we align our overall estimated cost in those lines. If it is, what I can say, gap into practical performance than the theoretical estimations, and we normally cope up to that as well. We build some cost forecast in terms of any added, padded cost, or too much change in terms of additional, change requests and all those things. Also, it's reflecting a cost forecast. Again, they specifically mention the change request, because that's the normal pipeline which coming in when we say we work in an agile, we work in a flexible environment. We keep adding to the solution, project, or product features, and we normally cope up with this on almost daily basis. So if there are too many change requests adding up to my cost, I might increase my cost reserve, or I might guide my product owner saying, hey, product owner, I believe we have added 6 costs in last week, 6 tasks in last week, and so they've converted to so much schedule, an additional resource. So we might need to, ramp up our overall cost-based lines or ramp up our, revenue forecast in those lines. And he will or she will understand what you're talking about. And then he'll also initiate or support such changes in case if you don't want, or he'll reduce the overall change request sending an RP. And this is how actually happens practically. The management plan updates are cost management plan, depending on any addition, subtraction, or change. The cost-based lines we talked about, the S-curve, the performance measurement baselines. If we are doing okay, we should be doing good rather than okay on a day, day-to-day basis. And this is how the overall human evolution talks about, right? We keep improving ourselves throughout our life. If you're not, then you're doing something wrong. And that's how the overall performance measurement baseline is understood at a project management level. So when you talk about performance measurement baseline, we are talking about the overall efficiency of each and every resource aggregated at a project level. Does that make sense? Or am I talking too technical? Could you understand the word performance measurement baseline? Anybody have any confusion on understanding performance measurement baselines?
No.
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank God. I thought everybody left the seat and kept the thing going as I keep talking. Sorry. And these are my way of checking. Thanks a lot for that. The project documents updates are assumption logs, basis of estimates, then whatever we estimated earlier, and how we keep track of it in terms of how much variance in between estimation and a practical execution and those scenario. Cost estimates. These cost estimates are derived cost estimate from scope, schedule, resources, and those three of them. Then lessons learned. If you're doing it better, the other organizations want to follow your suit. And how they do it? They try to adopt the best practices from the knowledge base you created for your project, or the release knowledge base to the organizational knowledge base, so that they can adopt to such best practices from your project also. And you might get rewarded as a project manager, or your team might get rewarded as a best project execution, and so on and so forth. And of course, we get updated our risk register in terms of need to add the reserve, need to elevate the reserve to a new level, and those kind of scenarios. Okay, this is how we control cost in a step-by-step way. Now I can sense we have quite a few number of technical terminology here. Let's try to understand one by one, and then we'll stop for the day. Right? Let's try to understand planned value. Planned value is authorized budget assigned to the scheduled work. Now, this is at a group task level. When you have something like planned value, this is what we talk about, the total cost assigned to a group work item or a group activity. Right? On a typical project plan, it is the authorized budget planned for the work to be accomplished for an activity or a work breakdown structure component. This we are talking about a group task, group activity, or group item, work item, not including the management reserve. Now, this is what we talk about the control accounts on a larger scale. The budget is allocated by phase over the life of a project. So we are talking about a typical group task or a phase of a project at the max. At a given point in a time, planned value defines the physical work that should have been accomplished. So when you talk about, like ma'am have explained in our example, all those typical group tasks, we can add or we can find a cost attached to this cost to group task, right? Because we have scope, schedule, and a resource, and we can deduce to a cost. We'll see how in next session most probably, and we'll understand how this cost get aggregated, or the plan value get aggregated on a group task level. The total plan value is sometimes referred as a performance measurement baseline. Total plan value in the that's the total of the plan value of a group task, means it's a total budgetary value of a figure, and this is what we call control control accounts. So work package estimate, group level, and then we have control accounts. So this plan value refers to the control accounts overall. The total plan value is sometimes referred as a performance measurement baseline, and total plan value of a project is also known as a budget at completion. This is budget at completion. And then we have management reserve. So contingency reserve plus work package estimate makes it control account, or what you can say, budget at completion. Means the actual practical value of budget at completion. Okay. Actual cost. Actual cost is a realized cost incurred for the work performed on an activity during the specific time period. Now, this is of a particular work item or a particular work activity or a task. It is the total cost incurred. Means we are talking about the actual practically executed project items or entities or activities. It is the total cost of incurred in accomplishing the work that the earned value is measured. Earned value in the sense you have earned that value, you have earned that cost, you have already consumed that cost. And the actual completion of work. Means if you estimated 6 activities to be performed in $1,000, when you complete your 6 activity with say $1,100, the earned value is 1,000, your cost is 1,100. So you are at $100 loss. Or if you if you earned a $1,000 task, completed $1,000 task with $800 spending, $800 actual cost, the earned value is plus $200, and so on and so forth. We'll have a look at it. We'll basically measure it in some formula in a few minutes. The actual cost needs to be correspond in a definition to what has budgeted in the planned value or measured in the earned value. The direct cost only, the direct cost only, or all the costs including the indirect cost. Normally, these are normally direct costs only. Direct costs as we proportionately align for the average cost to a resource in a project plan. The actual cost will have no upper limit. Whatever is spent to achieve earned value will be measured. Well, no upper limit in the sense that that's actually you spend, right? And as we are doing the project, as we're executing in the project day by day, yes, we are not put a limit to it as of now. But yes, we know on a theoretical level, like the total project cost or total project cost at a group level. But we don't cap it out as such on almost daily basis. But yes, we measure our earned value on daily basis. Okay. Let's try to understand earned value in the depth, because this is what we calculate on a daily basis, where I try to understand how much I spent on a daily basis and how much I have earned in terms of the work completion, right? Let's try to understand in depth. Earned value is a measure of work performed expressed in terms of the budget authorized for the work. The the control accounts. It is the budget associated with the authorized work that has been completed. So it is a part of a control account, what I'm going to calculate in terms of the work completed. So whatever work I've completed, I try to find out how much activities I have performed, how much work items I have completed, and how much percentage in terms of project report I should think I've earned the value. The completed is basically you earned, right? Because you completed your task. So you earned that much value. Okay. And that's how we normally calculate it. I know it's a bit confusing right now. Give me a minute and we'll understand in a step-by-step manner. The earned value being measured needs to be related to the PMB, and the earned value measured cannot be greater than the authorized PV budget for a component. Planned value, well, this is a normal way of positive thinking. The earned value shouldn't be bigger than the estimated value, right? And that's what they're trying to say. The earned value measured cannot be greater than the authorized planned value budget for a component. But yes, there can be some practical scenario where EV can be greater than PV. So your earned value will be in the negative. So you are at a loss. And those kind of scenario. The EV often used to calculate the percentage complete of a project. So like if your project is of 10 million, your completed work is of 2 million, and you spend almost 3 million as your planned budget, then you are lost by 1 million, right? Something like that. Let's try to understand it in depth. Progress measurement criteria should be established in each WBS component to measure work in progress. So I normally try to calculate my planned cost, or basically estimated cost, at a group item level. And then I aggregate it to a project level. Now, whatever item, whatever work item or activities I have completed, I put them to a earn value, and so on and so forth. The earn value progressively get increases to a planned project budget value throughout my project cycle, life cycle. And that's how the WBS is one of the most important part of the project, where we include the WBS as an activity structure or a work item structure to be executed for the project. The project manager monitors earn value both incrementally to determine the current status and cumulatively to determine the long-term performance trend. Now you can clearly understand how the earn value is basically getting calculated. Let's have a look at earn value management from a video, and we'll try to understand how this earn value is being calculated on a day-to-day basis, on a day-to-day progressive level, and we'll try to build how we basically keep track of such earn value progressions and how we check are we doing good or bad in terms of step-by-step progress execution level. Let's try to understand from this video. Okay.
To answer the question, what
Again, our good old friend who's explaining us how the earn value is being calculated.
is earned value management, or EVM. Performance of its programs. And to this day, all government programs in the United States use earned value management as their means of measuring and managing performance. So, what is earned value? Earned value is the authorized budgeted value of the work that you have successfully completed to date on your project. Now, I don't propose to try and give you a full account in under 5 minutes of how to carry out earned value analysis and all the measuring and monitoring procedures and the calculations and equations that are used by EVM practitioners. What I do want to do is to give you an idea of some of the principal concepts in earned value management and some of the primary measures that we use and some of the forecasts that earned value analysis can produce by manipulating the results of measurements using the equations of earned value management. There may be a range of views, but I would say that there are 4 primary measures that we use in earned value management. The first is budget at completion, and this represents the total budgeted cost of your project. The second primary measure is the budgeted cost of work scheduled, also known as the planned value. This is the budgeted cost of the work to be performed according to your plan, your schedule. So, the planned value is calculated by taking the budget at completion and multiplying by the proportion that the planned work represents of the whole project. The budgeted cost of work performed is also known as the earned value. And this is the value, according to the budget, of all the tasks that have been completed up till now. So we can calculate the earned value by multiplying the budget at completion by the proportion of the total project work represented by the completed work to date. The final primary measure is the actual cost of work completed, or just the actual cost. This is a measure of the total money actually expended on the tasks that have been completed to date. Not the budgeted cost, but the actual cost. Therefore, the difference between the budgeted cost and the actual cost represents the cost performance. What earned value management is particularly good at doing is combining cost performance on the one hand and schedule performance on the other. it's very easy to take a project and decide whether you're running ahead or behind schedule. It's also relatively easy to take the same project to see whether you've spent more or less budget than you expected at this stage. What earned value management does is allow you to look at a project which is not on schedule and it's not on budget, and to look at what the performance is for both of them at the same time. It also allows us to produce forecasts, and there are a number of forecasts that earned value analysis can produce. These include cost forecasts. We can calculate the estimate to complete and the estimate at completion. We can calculate variances from the plan. We can calculate cost variances, schedule variances, and variance at completion. And finally, there are two principal performance measures that we can calculate. And these are CPI, or Cost Performance Index, and SPI, Schedule Performance Index. So, earned value management is a tool that enables us to understand our performance, both in terms of cost and schedule at the same time, and to make calculations that will enable us to forecast how the project will perform if we continue as we are going now.
So this is how we basically calculate the earned value management, and basically leads up to wherever we stand in terms of the spending which have already been incurred at a given day for a given project. Now, if you really want to understand the earned value analysis, I have another short video for you where we try to build the actual earned value in terms of calculation. Let me bring that video. Oh, come on. Yes, here we're trying to calculate the actual number of no, it's a bigger video. Let me keep it for the next session. I'll share this video on the link. You can have a look at it, and then we'll discuss in our next session. Try to understand how the earned value is being calculated on day-to-day basis. And this total calculation involves CPI, SPI, cost performance index, schedule performance index, cost value, SV, EAC, ETC, BAC, EC, EV, CPI. Okay, that's a lots of acronym. So let me explain this thing to you in the next session, because we're almost at at 11 o'clock as of now. So I'll stop here, and we have already learned quite a few number of acronyms as of today. We need to understand the PV, EV, and the earned value management overall as in concept. So there are three acronyms which are really important. We also learned about how do we manage the S curves. What is the overall budgetary figures, what are the reserves, and how we tackle the reserve on almost at a task level, at a group item level, and at a project level. That's what we learned today, right? So we covered almost 70-75% of project cost management as of today. Now we're going to revisit these things in our next session, and we'll try to understand how project management, how project cost management is important to the top management, and how we basically face the project cost audit. This is one of the most crucial audits a project manager faces in terms of his or her performance. So this is really important for understanding or basically showcasing your talent as a project manager. And this is how we do it through project cost audits or project cost reviews. There are different labels used for such meetings, but at the end of the day, the way you estimated the cost and the way you consume the cost matters the most in terms of project execution focus. Do anybody have any questions for me at this moment?
No.
I know it's a bit difficult. I'll share the recording as well so you can go through it. And basically we'll discuss the earned value analysis again, and then we'll move to understand how do we calculate the earned value in detail. Okay. I'm going to share this tutorial with you, so don't worry. But at least visit it once. Try to find out if you have any confusion for understanding earn value, so that we can discuss it to the clear the confusion in our next session. Okay. Thanks a lot for your time. You have a great night. If you have any questions, do let me know. I'll be happy to solve them. Okay. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.